We come now to the fourth part of our discussion on participles. So last time we have studied the first idiomatic use of participles, the periphrastic construction, active and passive. So this time we shall take a look at the ablative absolute construction. It is an idiomatic expression that is unique in Latin, and this was used by the Romans to indicate the circumstances under which the action of the verb, the main verb, occurs. So, how is it constructed? Dua. There are two basic elements to make an ablative absolute construction or idiomatic expression. One is the noun, which is in the ablative case. And the second one is a participle that modifies the noun or pronoun in the ablative case. So therefore, agreeing with a noun or pronoun in gender and number, and of course in case, ablative case. So yan, duwang importanteng elements. Only these two very important elements. Although there can be some other elements or words in like modifiers or predicates and so on and so forth, ining duwang ini ang pinakang basic element of an ablative absolute idiomatic expression. A noun or pronoun in the ablative case, which is modified by a participle, any of the four participles that we have already studied. So here is an example of the ablative absolute construction. Christo resurrecto novum vitam accipimus. So you have the two elements there. Christo is the noun in the ablative case, and then resurrecto is perfect participle passive modifying Christo. So agreeing with Christo in number, gender, and of course in ablative case. Now, there is no equivalent of this idiomatic expression in Latin, in English, I mean. So when you translate the ablative absolute to English, it is not translated as a phrase. So, an ablative absolute, phrase ini, kung nihilingon ta digdi sa Latin. But when it is translated to English, it becomes a clause. So, anong pagkakaiba kan phrase sa clause? Ang phrase, group of words. Yan lang. Ang clause, group of words with subject and predicate. So, kung ini-English ini, magamit ka kan since, when, after, and so on, depending upon the context of the sentence. Kaya, paano ito na yung matatranslate? Christo resurrector novum vitam accipimus. Since Christ was resurrected, we receive new life. So, or when Christ was resurrected, or after Christ was resurrected. Pero ang mas, sensible would be, since Christ was resurrected, we receive new life. So, if this now appears in your worksheet, how will you do about it? So when I ask you to analyze Christo, of course it is a noun, and it is the ablative absolute. And resurrecto is the participle. No need to identify whether it is present, perfect, future, gerundive. Participle is the correct answer. And what is a function? Modifier of Christo. As simple as that. So, yan ang example kang ablative absolute. As you go along, you will get accustomed to this. Even in church documents, sa liturgy, kadakol ng mga construction na araw kayo niyang gamit in ablative absolute, which is very unique in the Latin language. Let us take a look at another example. Christo leprosum sanante, populi deum laudant. So, arindigdi an ablative absolute idiomatic expression. Christo is the noun, sanante is the participle, modifying Christo. It is a present active participle. So, agreeing with Christo in number, gender, and of course, ablative case. Leprosum here is an additional element. So, since sanante is active, it can have a direct object, and leprosum is the direct object. So, it will be translated as after Christ heals the leper, the people praise God. So, populi deum laudant. So, yan. After Christ heals the leper, the people praise God. So, as mentioned earlier, the Latin phrase can contain other words. In the example given here, the participle, because it is verbal, can have a direct object. And the prosum here is the direct object of sanante. At the same time, sanante as an adjective, participle is verbal adjective. It modifies Christo. So, once again, kung sa worksheet ini, Christo is the ablative absolute, noun, ablative absolute, sanante, participle, modifying Christo, leprosum, noun, direct object. Here is another example. This time, you have two nouns. Kaya na nga si participle dyan. Christo luce sine temore tenebrarum vivimus. The translation is, since Christ is the light, we live without fear of darkness. Sa example na ini, mayong participle. Sabi nga, ablative absolute, dua. Iguang noun in ablative and then participle. Ano ta duwang noun ini yung pareho ablative? Araw yan kanil explanation. Ang supposed participle digdi is the verb to be. But unfortunately, kung hilingon nindo ang paradigm kang conjugation kang verb sum, mayo yan dyan ning ano man na participle. So, sum does not have the verb sum, esse does not have a participle. So therefore, yung mayong participle dyan in between Cristo and Luce, di mayo. Kaya ang kalulusan kanining hulita, ang presumed participle is the verb to be, ining Cristo, Luce, ining construction is just like a subject, verb to be, and then complement or predicate noun. So, rule of agreement, the predicate noun or complement noun agrees with the subject in case only. So, Christo ablative, Luce ablative. So, in this example, in English, you provide the verb to be. Christ is the light. Since Christ is the light, we live without fear. So, two nouns in the ablative case, presumed participle is the verb to be. So, let us go back to the three examples that I have given you. Christo resurrecto, novum vitam accipimus. The second one, Christo leprosum sanante, populi Deum laudant. And the third one, Christo luce sine timore tenebrarum vivimus. So in these three sentences, the ablative absolute, of course, is Christo. And you will notice that Christo, the ablative absolute, is never referred to. Mayo yan digdi sa other half of the sentence, or we may call this as the main clause. Mayo yan digdi. No reference to Christo here. Novum vitam accipimus. Populi Deum laudant. Sine timore tenebrarum vivimus. Christ is never referred to here, whether in the subject or as a direct object. So, subject here, accipimus, understood we. Direct object, vitam. Here, subject, populi. Direct object, Deum. In the third example, vivimus is the subject. There is no direct object, but there is a participial phrase here. So, iyan ang sarong trait kang ablative absolute. Dahil pwedeng gamiton ang ablative absolute digdi sa main clause. So, dahil pwede yan. So, the ablative absolute idiomatic expression cannot happen if the noun or pronoun, which is the ablative absolute, is referred to in the main clause as subject or object. So, ini mga example ta, mahihilin do na never si Kristo nagbutwa o ginamit giraray dyan sa ibang parte kan sentence. So, yan ang ablative absolute idiomatic expression. Uniquely Latin expression. No exact equivalent in English. Kaya kaipuhan lang na patuodon taan sa diri tadigdi. Lalo na sa pag-translate. Pag-analyze, of course, and then pag-translate. So that's all for participles. We have now completed 4 sessions on participles.